Hello everyone and welcome to another video of Vivek Learns. In the last video of PepCoding Level 1 that we had done, we had solved this problem where if there are duplicate, if there are more than one brackets enclosing an expression, then what we used to do is that we used to return false. Otherwise, if this expression is valid, we have to return true. So if you see this C plus D, it is enclosed by the bracket two times and hence we return false. Okay. So let's try to solve the next video that we have of stack and queues, which is balance brackets. So if we see here, you are given an expression you are given a string representing an expression. You are required to check if expression is valid or not. So I have copied all these into my notepad and let's try to analyze. So the first expression, right? Is it valid? So this square bracket is closed by a square. This parenthesis is closed by another. Curly braces are closed by a curly braces. And then again, this seems to be a valid expression. But what if we have an invalid expression? So is this valid expression? It seems like, right? But it is not. Why? Because the square bracket has to be closed at the last, right? Because it has been open at the first. Other, like, and this curly braces have to be closed second last, right? So that is the difference between these two expressions that we have. If we try to find the third expression that we have, we see that we are missing a closing bracket. So this is one case. And if we try to see this one, we are missing an opening bracket. All other seems to be fine, right? Yeah. So what do we do? So how do we solve this? How do we tackle this? So what we can do is if we can see an opening bracket, we can push in the stack. Okay. And if we see a closing bracket, then we pop. Okay. Similarly can be applied to this. So if we see a square bracket, opening square bracket we can push, and if we can see a closing one then we can pop and so on, right? So what if we try to analyze it here? Let me have this for the second expression which is invalid. So yeah, let me have it here. Will this work? Let's try. So we have an opening bracket, so we put it, then we have a closing bracket, then oh sorry, another opening bracket, then we have a plus b. Okay, so we don't push any of these, right? Then we have a closing bracket, so the corresponding opening bracket will be popped up, right? Yep, we have removed this. Let me be careful and remove this. Yeah, so this is done. So plus we don't, then we have another opening bracket. So if we have another opening bracket, curly one, right? We push it. Then we have another parentheses. Then what do we have? We have C plus D, so we don't push this. But what do we have? We have another closing bracket after C plus D. So we erase this. We have multiply then we have another opening bracket. So let me insert another opening bracket. Then we have E divided by F and then another closing one. So the corresponding will be removed, right? So we are here. And what happens after this is we can check if stack.peak is a closing bracket or not. Okay, so if stack.peak is not this, sorry, we can check before popping, we can check if stack.peak is a closing closing curly brace or not. So first we can check if before popping, check if we have counterpart. If not, then return. So this is the first thing. So let's consider or we can consider this as the second thing as well. So if it was a valid scenario, then the stack would be empty, right? After the whole iteration. Like if this curly brace was before the closing bracket, like the closing square bracket, then it was a valid. So if stack is empty, we have the second condition now. Okay, so let me come here. If stack is empty, then what do we return here? Let's return false, right? Because it is not valid. If stack is empty here, then what do we do? Stack is empty, then return true, otherwise false. Because then we won't have equal number of closing and uh, like we can see this example, right? The one that I have after this. So the stack will not be empty because it will contain this because its counterpart is not present here, right? So similarly, we can have only one closing bracket as well, right? So if we have only one closing bracket, what do we do? Stack.peak will give a stack exception, right? Empty stack exception. So before checking if, so we can write here, we have another condition. Before popping, if stack dot peak is empty, then return false, right? So we can consider all these scenarios for now, and let's try to code for this. Let me create another class, a similar one for balance brackets. Excuse me. So we create a stack, we have is valid, then what do we have? We iterate over this, so what we can do this time, let's have a for loop instead of a while. So we don't need this index. So if we get the character first, let me get the char. We have expression, right? Char at I. If ch is equals to closing bracket. We have an opening bracket, right? Is equals to, right? Then what do? We do char stack dot push What do we push? We push ch. Else we check if stack is empty or not. If stack dot because before popping we else if what do we do? We'll require an else if condition, right? Else if this, then if stack dot is char stack, right? Not stack. Then is valid as false. Is valid as false, right? And then what do we do? We if this is not, then else part. If char stack is not empty, if char stack is empty, then it is not valid. Else what happens is we pop, right? But before popping, we check if it is a valid pop or not, right? Or we can do char stack dot peek. We peek first, and if that is not equal to closing bracket, not an opening bracket, right? So closing bracket will pop an opening bracket. Then, so if char stack is empty, then we return false. Otherwise, if char stack doesn't contain this closing bracket, then also we return false. Like we return is valid as false. Or otherwise, what do we do? Char stack dot pop. This is what we do, right? Yep. So yeah, this was the logic that we were expecting. So let me write it for others as well. If we have it opening bracket here, then closing bracket here, then opening square bracket here, right? And we can have else if here. We can have similar conditions for curly brackets as well. Yeah, can have else if here as well. Let me have those at separate. We have this clubbed, have these as separated. Yeah, this seems. So this is for parentheses, this is for square brackets, and this is for curly brackets. Do we have any other types of brackets? No, right? Yeah. So we print is valid at the last, and we have to check if stack is empty or not, right? Also, that condition is remaining. So is valid. So what condition is the one for stack empty? So when we have before popping, if the stack is empty, then we return true, right? Else we return false. The stack is empty is char stack, right? I always keep forgetting that is empty and is valid. So if char stack is empty, as well as we return is valid. So will this work? No, right? So what we can do is that we can return from here directly. Not return, break. Like, I always keep making the same mistake. So if it is false, then it will break. So at those conditions, it will not be true, right? The condition will not be true. So what do we do? Is valid. Okay, let's return is valid for now. But we'll be missing one condition of the last one. Okay, let's think about that later. Let's try to run those first two, three conditions and check. So this should be valid. So it should return true. And indeed it does. And this is also kind of valid but invalid. So it's invalid, but yeah, let's not at all valid. Oops, it returns true. So it should not, right? It should return false. It should break and then it should come here, right? So what's happening? Let's check. So this stack, basically it should break here, right? It should pop this, then while popping this, right? While popping this, it should return. So while popping this, we can print if char stack dot is empty. True. Is it empty? If it is empty, then yeah, it is not empty. So it will check the next condition. Char stack dot peak. Okay, so let me print it once here. Char stack. And let's try to run it again. It doesn't go there. That's the issue. It's not going there. Don't know why. We are not doing index plus plus. Oh, are we doing? Yes, we are doing it here. Let me check it from this example again. It's not going there itself. Oh, my bad. It's it's iterating over ARGS and ARGS is always 0, right? So we have to use this expression. But why didn't it give me an error, right? Because yeah, I'm using it here. Not an error, a warning. It did not give me a warning. Let me have this expression, and for this time it should return false. And indeed it does. Right. Let me try to run it once again. For the first input, which should return true. Correct. But if we try to run for this, it should return. It should return true, but it should not. It should return valid as true. But this is invalid, so that is where we need to check at the last if the stack is empty or not. So we'll work on that. But let us check before that one more condition of which condition? Yeah, this one where we don't have an opening bracket. So if we don't have an opening bracket, then the stack will be empty somewhere. and then we should get valid as false, right? So where can you guess where will be the stack empty? So the stack will be empty when it's trying to pop this one, right? So I can print that and show. Let's check it. Char stack. So let me check it once and have it here. And the char stack should be empty and then it should print false. And indeed it is. So let us quickly tackle the last condition that we have, where which we have to check if it is valid or not. Not valid or not, we have to check if it is empty or not. So let me check if car stack is empty, but we are returning from here, right? So I think we can remove these breaks because at last, uh, what if we remove these breaks? Or what we can do is that we can print directly and then return. Okay, so we have to do that. Yeah, so that is what we do. We print is valid is false and then we return. And otherwise, at the last, what we can do is we can check if stack is empty or not. So after this, we can check char stack, right? Dot is empty. Then we return true if char stack is empty, is valid. Then we print true, right? We are directly printing. Otherwise, we print false. So this will handle the last condition that we have. Let me run that scenario. This is true, right? We have made some functional changes as well. So let's check for this condition. Mm, and we can return from here now. Yeah, because it will print it 2 times. Yeah, so it will not print this statement again. So we can have another check for this one where we have an opening bracket only. So this will come here. This condition will come here and returns false. So this is correct now. Let's try to have another check for another condition. So this will come somewhere like I showed the last time, right? It will come here, right? And it will print false. Yeah, so we don't require this, right? That was for the previous problem. Yeah, so that is how we have solved this question of balance brackets, right? So this was all for this video. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.